Alright, this video is about this 67 Ford pickup. It has a 300 inline 6-cylinder in it. About a year ago, I did a video similar to this with the same amount of firewood, with the engine in its stock form, just a stock 300 6-cylinder, and how it performed hauling a load of wood, like this. Fast forward a year later now, or actually about a month prior to this, I got done with my engine build on this 300 inline 6. Over a couple years I've been acquiring the performance parts I needed. I'll pop the hood. It's not really flashy underneath. Actually, it sort of matches the exterior of the pickup. I like the patina finish on it, and the interior sort of matches more like a 60s industrial type look. So nothing flashy, but it matches the period. So this video is basically just about the engine build I did on this 300 inline and the performance I got out of it. So I'll pop the hood. First thing you notice, this looks like a regular engine. The head is a 240 cubic inch head. They're interchangeable to a 300. The advantage of that is you get a smaller combustion chamber. So you raise the compression ratio from 9.4 to 9.1, so which is good. I had that engine rebuilt by a mechanic here in town. He put hardened valve seats in, a double angle valve job for me, better flow. Before I had it rebuilt, I spent quite a number of hours porting it. My first port job, just widened things out as best I could for best airflow. My machinist said I did a pretty good job, so more airflow the better on these old heads. And the I'm not trying to get mass airflow, but just efficient airflow for torque. That was my goal. So I got a Clifford 4-barrel intake that I got off Craigslist. Underneath that intake is a exhaust manifold. It's not your stock one. It's actually a late 60s, early 70s heavy-duty exhaust manifold you find on some of the heavier-duty Fords for more airflow. A lot of guys put on EFI manifolds. They're cheap, easy to come across, but I think they kind of look butt ugly, especially visually in this pickup. So I was able to find this one. It has a 2.5 inch dump, and I got 2.5 inch exhaust run all the way out, so you get good airflow with that. You can see the heat exchanger. One of the most challenging parts of this build was that I had a 1/4 inch space between the exhaust manifold and the intake, and the original heat exchanger on the exhaust had to be plugged with a plate, and I also had to plate the heat exchanger on the intake. So I don't know if you can see it, but it's only about a 1/4 inch between the two manifolds. Maybe a little more than a 1/4 inch, and I had to plate it with 1/8 inch plate on both sides and countersink the bolts. So that was a bit of a challenge on the build. So on top of all this is just a 2-barrel Ford Autolite Carburetor 2100. Pretty common. Very simple carburetor, pretty efficient. About a 380 CFM, nothing too killer. Real good low end torque on those carbs. On top of that's a Canon air filter underneath that stock valve cover. So yeah, and inside the engine it looks pretty stock. I actually found an old rusty valve cover, sort of matched the look I wanted. So nothing flashy, but it's my style. Kind of kept it 60s, all metal, no plastic, you know, stuff like that. So stuff you don't see much anymore. As far as performance I got out of this, noticeably better than it was stock. I mean, stock carburetor is 150 CFM and real restrictive for airflow and stuff like that. So, you know, I haven't done numbers or anything, but running around empty, I bet you I've increased my power 20%. I mean, it's very noticeable. This load of firewood I have, it's actually green, or half green. It was alive last summer, then the burn went through, but it's still very sappy, very heavy. 2.5 cords. I don't usually load the truck that heavy, but I got kind of greedy, so I went up yesterday with a friend. He had his truck and trailer, similar setup. He had a pickup bed trailer. His truck had a V8. It was a Dodge 318 half-ton. We basically carried essentially the same weight and same load. And coming out of the hills, this 6-cylinder pulled every bit as good as his Dodge 318, so I was very pleased with that. The only time his truck got away from me was on a stretch where I was in second gear, and I had enough power, but just not enough power to reach up into third gear, so he pulled away from me a little bit on that stretch. But other than that, I mean, we kept pace just perfect, you know. This little 6-cylinder kept up with his 318. Actually, on that same stretch of hill, I was about ready to power out on that second gear climb. It went from higher range down to mid-range RPM, and it was kind of dropping. But it actually, the torque of this motor powered out of that grade, so I was able to keep second gear and power through that mid RPM back to higher RPM. So really impressed with that. The truck originally had a 352 V8, and I know that V8 would not have been able to do that. So the torque band on these engines, especially after this build, is very consistent and better than most V8s. So, but overall, the engine build, I feel like I gained the most advantage with mid to upper range RPM. The torque band overall is really good. I mean, it's just overall consistently better than stock from low to high. But the biggest difference is probably horsepower in the mid to upper RPMs. I got noticeably a lot better than I did stock. So I was glad I was able to keep up with the 318 V8. It really, this engine, I feel like, well, this truck has had, originally came with a 352, it's had a 390 in it, and it's had a 460 actually for one time, and this engine. So my goal was to build this engine to match the FE blocks, like the 352, 360, 390. I feel like I've gotten pretty close. I know that this engine has more overall power than the 352 it originally had, but it doesn't match the torque or horsepower of like a 390. So, but not a horsey motor, but man, I love the torque band on it, especially after yesterday coming out of the hills. So still really a lot of weight for any engine to carry out, but really pleased with it. I'll start it up. You can listen to it if you want. I'll go over the exhaust system on it and how it sounds, if that interests you. 2.5-inch exhaust all the way out. I put a thrush glass pack on it. Still has a rattly sound down low. I think it's the bottom end kind of loose, but it has good oil pressure and good compression, so I'm going to leave it for now. The exhaust is 2.5-inch all the way out. I kept the glass pack up near the cab because I heard that the longer pipe you have, the better throatier it sounds, so I'll let you listen. That's it. Sound quality is never as good on the camera, but has a very good tone to it, not too loud. Definitely has a 6-cylinder sound. It sounds deeper than it did before. I don't know if it's through the porting or the open exhaust, but that's my engine build. Very pleased with it. The only thing I might do different is put a Quadrajet 4-barrel on. I got a neighbor that swears up and down he can build one to match this engine and make it perform really good. So I'm gonna mull around with that thought a little bit, and so that's my engine build. It's where we at, June 1st, 2014. So pretty pleased with it. A 6-cylinder with a V8 power.